My son leaned over my hospital bed and whispered, "She'll be dead by morning. Just wait." I couldn't move, couldn't speak, but I was wide awake. He thought his mother was already gone. He didn't know I could still hear every word, and that I'd spend the rest of my life making him pay. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The first thing I remember is the sound, soft, mechanical, and maddeningly steady. Beep, pause, beep. Each one stabbed through the silence like a metronome counting down something I couldn't name. My vision was haze, a film of white light laced with shadows, shapes I couldn't quite follow. My tongue felt like sandpaper, my body, a cinder block. Somewhere far off, the room shifted, a murmur like fabric rustling, then voices, low and muffled, floated through the fog. My son's voice came first, unmistakable in its oily confidence, even when whispered, "She'll be dead before morning." I froze inside myself. Was this a dream? Then Lauren's reply, clipped and cool, "That's what the doctor said yesterday." My heart flailed, frantic against my ribs. I tried to move my lips, to blink, to scream, but nothing obeyed. Ryan sighed. "It's what she'd want. Not to drag this out. You heard her talk about quality of life. You mean before the stroke?" "Yeah, I heard her. Doesn't mean she'd want us deciding it." I wanted to hurl the IV stand at her smug little voice, but all I managed was silence. I was in there, alive, listening. "They'll read the will in 2 weeks," Ryan muttered, "and then we can get out of this damn town, start clean." A sound followed, paper being unfolded maybe. "Derek won't question it, she's too far gone." Derek, my husband's old friend, our attorney? I willed my eyelids to move. Move, damn it, move! Nothing, no change, just that stupid beep. I heard footsteps. Lauren's, I thought, clicking away across tile. Ryan stayed. I could sense it in the quiet. A moment passed, then he leaned in. I felt the shift in air, the sourness of coffee and stale cologne. "I hope you're not listening, Mom," he whispered, too close to my ear, "because I don't want to lie to your face again." Then the door sighed open, and his presence evaporated. I would have sobbed if I could. Not because of the betrayal, though God knows it slashed something deep, but because I couldn't fight back. Not with my voice, not with my hands, not with anything. And that's when I saw her. A nurse, young, maybe 30, dark hair pulled tight beneath her cap, stepped into the room. She had a clipboard and a kind face, but she looked distracted. Her eyes flicked over me, routine, checking machines, IV lines, pulse ox. Her pen moved with mechanical indifference, but just as she turned to go, I tried again. A flicker, a twitch. My left eyelid shuddered, then jerked. Once. She stopped. Slowly, she turned back. Her brows knit. She stepped closer. "Mrs. Hayes?" Inside, I roared. Yes, I'm here. Please." She bent down, her eyes locked on mine, searching. "Did you just move?" Nothing. I couldn't do it again. She exhaled. "Maybe my imagination," she muttered, but her voice had changed, more focused. She checked the monitor again, scanned my pupils with a light. Then, almost to herself, "I think she's still with us." With us. The words wrapped around something raw in my chest and held it together. The door creaked open again, and the nurse turned to greet someone. I couldn't see who, just a vague white coat moving into frame. "Morning, Elin," the nurse said. I think Mrs. Hayes blinked at me. Not a spasm, a real blink. A new voice responded, calm but firm. "Let's run her through a Glasgow and check responsiveness again." Already did. Minimal, but her vitals are steady, no decline. Footsteps shuffled around the bed. I caught a faint whiff of citrus and antiseptic. Then a hand, light, deliberate, touched mine. It was warm, gentle. "Margaret," the voice said, closer now, a woman's voice. "If you're in there, we're going to find a way to get you out." I wanted to thank her. I wanted to cry, but the only part of me that still felt mine was memory. And that's where I went next. Ryan at 17, pacing our kitchen, begging me to co-sign that first truck loan. Ryan at 28, calling from Nevada, "Mom, it's just one investment that went sideways." Me, wiring him $40,000. Then again, telling myself he's all I have left. He said he'd pay me back, that he was just unlucky, that his wife was stressed, that I didn't understand, and still, I forgave. Now I was in a room I couldn't leave, in a body I couldn't move, trapped behind eyes they thought were empty. But I was there, and I had just blinked. The diagnosis came on a Thursday. They didn't say it to me, of course. They said it around me, like I was furniture with a chart. Locked-in syndrome, Dr. Parker told the nurse quietly at the foot of my bed. She's aware, but motor control is virtually absent. Maybe we'll see improvements in weeks. Maybe. They kept their voices clinical, detached, but I caught the pause before maybe. It hovered like humidity in the room. I wanted to scream, "I am here." Instead, my body stayed a husk, an occupied shell. No movement, just heat behind my eyes and thoughts rattling like loose marbles. Ryan arrived the next day, all crocodile concern and false fatigue. Lauren wasn't with him this time, probably working on Plan B. He stood near the window, drumming his fingers against the sill. "She looks worse," he said, glancing toward Dr. Parker. "I mean, do we really think this is reversible?" Dr. Parker didn't respond immediately. She just flipped through the latest neuroscans with clinical dispassion. "There's been no further damage, and some reflex indicators are still intact. It's early." "She wouldn't want this dragged out," Ryan said. "She told me that. She said life without independence isn't living. She even talked about assisted options once." I wanted to blink number. I wanted to slam my hand on the bedrail, but even that small rebellion was beyond me. He leaned in, too close, the scent of his aftershave laced with impatience. "I think it's time we consider transferring her. My house has a spare room. Lauren's mom's a nurse." Dr. Parker looked up sharply. "Hospice isn't approved yet, and she's not terminal." Ryan shrugged too quickly. "It's about comfort, dignity. That's what she'd want." I felt something stir beneath my ribs, not movement, but resolve. If I couldn't scream, I would signal. Somehow, I focused every fiber on a single muscle, channeling all I had toward my eyelids. Left, right. Nothing. Not even a flutter. Later that night, Dr. Parker returned with someone new. A woman, early 30s, plain clothes, no lab coat. She had a ponytail and a canvas messenger bag slung across her shoulder. "This is Emma Cross," Dr. Parker said softly. "She's a hospice volunteer but also a law student, has a talent for connecting with patients others overlook." Emma smiled as she approached. "Hey, Mrs. Hayes. I'm not a nurse, so no needles from me. I'm just here to hang out, unless you'd rather be alone, which is also fair." I would have laughed if I could. Alone was an old friend by now. She reached into her bag and pulled out a laminated board, the kind used for patients who couldn't speak. Rows of letters, grouped into boxes, with yes and no in the corners. "I know it's early and you're tired," Emma said, "but if you can see this, and if blinking is still your thing, maybe we can try something." She held it up. "1 blink for yes, 2 for no, okay?" I stared at her. A pause. Then, blink. Emma's eyes widened. "Okay, that's something. Let's try letters. I'll scan row by row, just blink when I hit the right one." It was painfully slow, agonizing, but it was a way, a path through the concrete of my body. A, B, C, blink. C, got it. Then again, D, E, F, G, blink. G, she said, quieter now, focused. Cool, C, G. It took us nearly 20 minutes to spell the first word, but Emma didn't rush. She didn't fidget or check her phone or sigh like I was wasting her time. She waited, focused. Finally, the letters formed something real. Not safe. Emma's face changed. She didn't smile this time. She looked up, expression serious, and whispered, "Who?" I blinked once. Not yes. Not number, just once. Emma folded up the board slowly, eyes lingering on mine. "All right," she said. "I hear you." But I wasn't done. I began again. Blink. Letter by letter, I carved meaning out of silence. Ryan, Lauren, Will. The weight of it landed between us in the quiet hum of machines. Emma reached for my hand, not to check a pulse, not to reposition a tube, but because she understood. "I've got you," she said. "We're going to get this right." Just then, the door creaked open again. Ryan. He stood in the doorway with flowers in one hand, papers in the other. His eyes darted between Emma and me. "And Emma?" She didn't flinch. She stood up slowly, placed the board on my lap, and smiled too sweetly. "Oh, good. You're just in time." Ryan didn't waste time. He set the flowers down on the tray table like they were a peace offering, then unfolded the papers with a crisp snap that made my insides seize. "These just need a quick sign-off," he said, flashing his 2 white teeth at Emma. "End-of-life care preferences. We've already talked about it." Emma didn't touch the forms. "You should probably discuss that with Dr. Parker." Ryan shrugged. "Of course, just trying to streamline things. It's what Mom wanted." He said it like we'd shared some secret pact, like the woman trapped inside this body would willingly hand him the keys to the exit. I blinked once, on instinct, uselessly. Dr. Parker arrived minutes later, as if summoned by my own unease. Her eyes immediately clocked the forms on the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Do not resuscitate," Ryan said smoothly. "It's been discussed. We've got a copy on file at her attorney's office. Just needs to be acknowledged here." Parker didn't reach for the paper, her brows knitted. "We've already reviewed Mrs. Hayes's intake documents. No DNR was noted. And legally, we need a direct order or a previously verified copy, not a second-hand printout." "It is verified," Ryan said, tapping the bottom corner. "Signed by her," and dated. Parker glanced at the signature, then at me. She was too composed to show doubt, but I felt the shift in her stance. "She has moments of responsiveness," she said. "And this signature looks recent." Ryan gave a theatrical sigh. "With all due respect, if you've met my mother, you know she was always pragmatic. This is what she wanted." Emma stepped forward. "Then why's she blinking every time we bring you up?" Ryan blinked back, confused. "Excuse me?" Emma turned to me. "Maggie? Is Ryan safe?" I blinked. Twice. Hard. Ryan chuckled too loudly. "Okay, this is ridiculous." Emma didn't laugh. She held up the letterboard again. "Maggie, about your will. Do you want me to ask Derek Shaw about it?" 3 hard blinks. The air in the room thickened like steam before a storm. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You're using... what? Morse code now?" Emma didn't answer. She stepped around him and walked toward the hallway. "Dr. Parker, can I talk to you outside for a moment?" The door clicked behind them, leaving me alone with Ryan. I could hear my heart thumping in my ears. He moved closer, leaned in like he had the night I woke up. His smile was gone. "I don't know what game you think you're playing," he whispered, "but it won't work. You don't get to be the martyr and the mastermind." I blinked once, a slow, heavy blink, my only middle finger. He chuckled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then he left. Outside, I could hear their voices through the crack in the door. "She blinked 3 times when I asked about her will," Emma said. "That's not nothing." Dr. Parker's tone was calm, but firmer now. "And the signature doesn't match what we have in the intake archives. It's close, but not right." "I can record him," Emma said quickly. "He talks too much when he thinks he's winning." A beat. Then Parker answered, lower. "Do it carefully." Later that evening, the hallway was quiet. Too quiet for visitors, but Ryan wasn't one to respect boundaries. Emma lingered just outside my room, back to the wall, phone half tucked in her sleeve, pretending to read. Ryan walked past her on the way to the vending machine, unaware of how clearly his voice carried. "Lauren," he muttered on the phone, "we have to speed this up. The hospital's dragging their feet, and that little hospice girl is poking around." Pause. "No, I've got the DNR ready. They just need to get it through the system." Another pause. A laugh. "Of course it's real. It's her damn signature. They'll believe it." Emma's thumb tapped something on the screen. Quiet, steady. Recording. By morning, Dr. Parker had filed an emergency hold on all transfer paperwork, including the DNR. Ryan found out during his next visit. "This is absurd," he snapped, slapping his palm against the nurse's station desk. "She's non-responsive. What gives you the right to overrule her legal directive?" Dr. Parker didn't blink. Until I receive an independently verified copy, signed prior to her stroke, with proper witness attestation she's not going anywhere." He opened his mouth to protest, then saw Emma standing beside her, calm, still, eyes narrowed. That was the first time I saw him falter, not defeated, but rattled. And for the first time since I'd woken up, something inside me felt dangerous. The hallway was silent when he stumbled in. The overhead fluorescents buzzed faintly above, casting the room in sterile halos. I'd learned to recognize time without clocks, shifts in light, rhythms in nurse rotations, the groan of cleaning carts. This was after hours. Ryan's silhouette wavered in the doorway, off kilter. His hand lingered on the frame a second too long. Then he shuffled in, bottle breath trailing behind him like a second presence. "Thought you'd be asleep," he slurred with a smile that didn't reach anything. He dragged the visitor chair up to my bedside, legs scraping loudly against the floor. I could smell whiskey, cheap, sour, angry. "I know you're asleep," he said, gesturing to me like I was a mannequin. "Or gone, pretty much gone." He leaned in, eyes glossy. "They're watching me now. Parker. That damn volunteer. You believe that?" He laughed, high, bitter, cracking like glass. "I didn't plan it this way, you know. I really didn't. But then things just kept falling apart. And now they want proof. Real signatures. Legal things. Like I'm some kind of monster." His voice cracked, and I realized he wasn't trying to convince me. He was trying to convince himself he still had a mother. "You were supposed to go quietly," he whispered, resting his elbow on the bed rail. "You always made everything easy, Mom, even when you shouldn't have." His head dropped into his hands. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to be the son who waited around for the will?" He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. "I didn't. But that's what I am now. The guy who gambled on his mother dying." The room spun around him, and he slouched back in the chair. "Lauren said I should leave it alone. Let the hospital run it out. But the debt collectors don't run on hospital time." He laughed again, lower this time, almost like a sob. "They want the house, our house, my house." He sniffed, wiped his face. "I swear, I just thought if I could get it all transferred quick, clean, I'd fix it. I'd finally fix something, but you're still here. And now Parker's frozen the papers, and that little intern's blinking with you like it's a fucking spelling bee." He stared at me then, really stared. "You're in there, aren't you?" he asked, voice suddenly soft. "Some part of you still hates me." My chest tightened. I couldn't move. I couldn't answer. But in that moment, something inside me burned so hot, so human, it forced the smallest crack in the surface. A single tear slid from the corner of my eye, down into my hairline. Ryan didn't notice, but Emma did. The next morning, she entered with fresh eyes and a firm grip on her clipboard, but stopped mid-step when she saw the moisture stain on the pillow. She didn't say anything right away, just moved around the bed, brushing the hair gently from my temple. Her voice was low. "You cried last night, didn't you?" I blinked once. She was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned closer, letterboard in hand. "Okay," she said. "Talk to me." It didn't take long. L. "Call who?" she asked. "D-E-R-E-K. Her lips parted slightly. "Derek Shaw? Your estate attorney?" I blinked. Hard. Emma stood. "I'll tell Dr. Parker." An hour later, Parker came in without fanfare. She wore her lab coat this time, and a deeper crease lined her forehead. "No notes," she said quietly. "Just trust." I blinked once. She left the room. That afternoon, a visitor arrived. Not in a suit, no briefcase, just khakis, an old sports jacket, and a weathered expression that spoke volumes. Derek Shaw looked older than I remembered, more gray, less bluster, but his eyes were still sharp. "Hello, Margaret," he said softly, taking the seat Ryan had used the night before. "Just an old friend checking in." Emma stood to the side, saying nothing. Derek leaned in slowly, held up 2 fingers. "If you recognize me, blink twice." I did. "Good," he said, voice dropping. "We don't have long." He pulled a slim notebook from his jacket. No laptop, no phone, just ink and paper. Let's start from the beginning, he murmured. How long have they been pushing for control? My eyes burned. My body ached. But I blinked. And blinked. And blinked. Outside the room, someone was watching. Lauren. She stood just beyond the glass, pretending to scroll through her phone. Smiling faintly, eyes narrowed. She hadn't come to visit. She had come to calculate. Derek left the hospital quietly that afternoon, nodding politely to the charge nurse, never looking back toward the room where Lauren stood glued to her phone. But his fingers were already dialing before the elevator doors closed. The drive to the Hayes estate took 20 minutes through winding North Asheville hills, the road narrowing into old oaks and mailbox shadows. He remembered this house well, better than he liked. Margaret had hosted book clubs here, charity dinners, student recitals. Ryan had been just a lanky teen then, sulking on the stairs while his mother made introductions. Now he was trying to gut her legacy. Derek still had the spare key Margaret had insisted he keep, just in case the boy ever got too bold. It slid into the lock cleanly. The house smelled like lemon polish and stale secrets. He walked past the grand piano, past the mantel with its carefully posed family photos, Ryan with a diploma, Ryan with a real estate license, Ryan with Lauren, and made his way to the study. Third drawer down, right-hand side. Maggie's voice echoed in memory. The lock was old, the kind you had to jiggle. It clicked after a moment of pressure. There it was. The envelope was thick and hand-sealed with wax. Margaret's looping script labeled it simply, Revised Will, July 2021. He opened it, reading through carefully, line by line. 60% to 3 educational nonprofits, 30% to a local elder abuse advocacy group, 10% split between Emma Cross and a private grant for stroke recovery research. Ryan and Lauren, removed completely. There was even a clause revoking his previous durable power of attorney, citing a breach of trust stemming from unauthorized withdrawals. Derek's mouth tightened. He remembered those withdrawals. Maggie had told him in confidence how she'd traced $11,000 gone in a month, all spent at casinos and luxury furniture outlets. Ryan had called it an accident. She had changed the locks that very week. By the time he returned to the hospital, the will was scanned, backed up, and filed under sealed notation. Dr. Parker met him in her office, her expression unreadable. "You're sure this is her most recent?" "Without question." She mentioned he'd tried a contest. "He'll fail, unless he gets to her first." Parker nodded. "Then we move fast." Later that evening, she filed a report with the Hospital Ethics Board. Maggie Hayes, age 76, displayed signs of partial responsiveness and cognitive clarity. Recommendation: no transfers, no DNRs honored without in-person competency evaluation. In the ICU, I felt the shift. It came like a soft release of pressure in the room, the invisible coil around my chest loosening by degrees. Emma looked lighter, more certain. Derek returned to my bedside with a quiet smile. "It's safe," he said simply. And then, as if summoned by the devil himself, Ryan walked in with a bouquet of pink lilies and the same goddamn smile he always wore when pretending to care. "Mom," he said, too loud, too bright, "you're looking better." I blinked once, dry, slow. He turned to Derek, feigning surprise. "Oh, you're here." "Old friend?" Derek said calmly, never rising from the chair. "Just checking in." Ryan set the bouquet on the windowsill, then turned back to me. "They said you had a good day. We're all so relieved." His voice oozed guilt-drenched charm. "Lauren's outside. She didn't want to overwhelm you." I blinked twice. Emma slid the whiteboard into place, and I focused hard. W-R-I-T-E. Emma grabbed a felt-tip pen and slipped it into my fingers, guiding them gently. It took everything I had, wrist trembling, knuckles clumsy, but I scratched a single word onto the notepad she'd positioned on my tray table. Stop. Another pause, another twitch. Him. Emma's eyes widened. Derek leaned forward, reading upside down. Ryan froze mid-sentence. "What's that?" he asked, smiling too wide. Emma calmly picked up the notepad. "She's communicating." Derek stood, and from the hallway, Lauren's face appeared again, pressed to the glass like a child at an aquarium, watching everything. The EMTs arrived just after 9 a.m. 2 men in Navy uniforms wheeled in a collapsible stretcher and a portable oxygen tank, one of them checking a clipboard. The taller one glanced at my chart, confused. "She's not supposed to be moved today," he muttered. Emma stepped between them and the bed, calm but firm. "There's no authorized discharge on file." The younger EMT flipped a page. "We have orders signed by next of kin, says transfer to private hospice care, outpatient facility listed as residence." Emma's voice didn't waver. "That's not how any of this works." I wanted to scream. "It's him. He's doing this now." One of them pulled out a phone. "We're just following dispatch instructions, ma'am." "I'll be right back," Emma said. Her shoes echoed down the hall as she sprinted toward Dr. Parker's office. I counted the seconds, 12 before the door swung open again. Dr. Parker didn't waste time. "Put the stretcher away. Now." The EMTs looked from her to the chart, unsure. She raised her badge. "I'm the attending. This patient is under a protected review. Transfer is unauthorized and illegal without physician consent." The taller EMT nodded, eyes wide. "Copy that." As they backed away, the lobby doors hissed open. "Ryan." He stormed into the hallway, his shirt wrinkled, tie askew. "What the hell is going on?" Dr. Parker stepped between him and the room. "There was no transfer order." Ryan's face flushed dark red. "I gave the order. She's my mother." Emma reappeared, breathless. "And you're not her guardian? That status hasn't existed since July?" "She's incapacitated," Ryan barked. "She can't speak for herself." "But she can write." Derek's voice cut in, suddenly at Emma's side. "And she already has." Ryan turned, mouth open, but the words caught. Security had arrived. A uniformed officer moved in from the main entrance. "Sir," he said, calm and detached, "we're going to need to step outside and talk." "I didn't do anything wrong," Ryan shouted. "I'm trying to care for my mother. This is a witch hunt." Inside the room, I watched him unravel, arms flailing, voice rising. "This whole place is trying to poison her against me," he yelled. "She doesn't even know what's going on." Dr. Parker folded her arms. "She knows more than you think." 2 more officers joined, escorting Ryan out of the corridor as he kept shouting over his shoulder. "You'll regret this, all of you." But the moment the doors shut behind him, the quiet returned like a snapped rubber band. Derek turned to Parker. "We need to lock this down, today." "Already on it," she said. "Admin's drafting emergency notices, but guardianship needs to be frozen through the courts. Give me 2 hours." He left, phone already to his ear. By noon, the fax had come through. Emergency injunction. Freezing of all estate transfers and medical guardianship pending review. Emma placed the notice gently at the foot of my bed like a certificate of survival. "You did it," she said softly. But it wasn't over. That afternoon, in the filtered sunlight of my room, Emma handed me the felt-tip pen again. My grip was stronger now, sloppy but steady. She gave me a clean pad. I wrote slowly, letter by letter, HEWANTSMEDEAD. She stared at the paper, then up at me, then back again. "He wants me dead." She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She just folded the note and slipped it into her bag. Outside, Ryan sat on a bench in the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear. "No, I don't know how they shut it down," he said to Lauren. "They've got her under lock now. Some ethics thing, some legal trick." A pause. Then, "Derek's back. He found something. I think she's talking." Another pause, and then, "What do we do now?" It started with a $60 purchase at a liquor store. Derek sat at the long table in Dr. Parker's office, sleeves rolled up, laptop open, printouts layered beside him. Statements, transfer logs, ATM photos. Emma hovered at his side, her expression darkening with every page. "Look at the dates," Derek muttered, tapping the charges. This was 2 days after the stroke, her cards being used in Asheville. Emma frowned. He was here? Or someone with her card. He scrolled, jaw tightening. And it doesn't stop. Gas stations, cash withdrawals, even a casino charge in Cherokee, totals over $27,000. Dr. Parker entered quietly, coffee in hand. "Is that enough to press charges?" "Not yet," Derek said, "but it will be." Another file rested at the corner of his laptop, marked in red. Trust account, Hayes Legacy Foundation. Supposedly created for continued medical support and family care. Except Maggie had never authorized it, and its only known signatory was Ryan. "Opened 3 months ago," Derek said, flipping the document toward Emma. "Deposits from her checking, he was funneling her money out under a fake non-profit." Emma leaned closer. "We can't just catch him, we need to burn the bridge behind him." Derek nodded. "We'll give him the rope." That afternoon, they set the trap. Emma stepped out into the hallway, just far enough for Ryan to hear her voice. She placed the call on speaker. "She passed at 12:42, Emma said flatly. "No code. Natural decline." Pause. "I figured I should let you know before it hits the records. The hospital's filing paperwork now." She hung up without waiting for a reply. Inside the room, I watched her pace. 1 beat, 2. 3 minutes later, Ryan called Lauren. The phone call came through on Emma's burner line, patched into the recorder Derek had provided. "She's gone," Ryan said. "It's done. We're clear." Pause. "No, for real this time. Emma told me herself. It's in motion. We just have to stay quiet." Another pause. Lauren's voice, tinny and giddy, came through. "Finally, Jesus, I'm calling Steve. He has a Model Y coming off the lot this week." Emma pressed stop on the recording. "Got it," she said. She transferred the file onto a secure drive and placed it in a padded envelope. Back in my room, the air was warm with late-day light. Emma stood beside me, silent, then crouched to meet my eyes. She held her phone out and pressed play. Ryan's voice filled the room. "She's gone. It's done. We're clear." Then Lauren. "Finally." A long pause followed. My pulse echoed in my ears, and for the first time I felt it not from fear, but fury. Emma knelt beside me. "You okay?" I blinked twice. "Yes." I motioned toward the pad. She handed me the pen. Slowly I wrote, "BURNTHEMBOTH." Emma read it, then nodded, once. Outside, the sunlight bent across the glass, catching on something shiny in the lot below. A black Tesla. Brand new. Lauren stood beside it, laughing as she opened the driver's door. Inside, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. She didn't listen, but she would. Soon. They started with vowels. "Ah. E. Ooh." The speech therapist was patient, kind-eyed, and as relentless as a metronome. She visited twice a day now, guiding my tongue through slow stretches and small hums, each one scraping out from the back of my throat like something ancient being unearthed. Emma sat across from me, cheering under her breath. Derek brought crossword puzzles and small notebooks, the kind you could fill with partial words and half-formed sentences. But I wanted voice, not blinking, not scrawled warnings. I wanted sound, something they could feel. It came suddenly, on a Tuesday morning, just after Emma cracked a joke about Ryan's hair plugs. "Cheap! Liar!" The words hissed out like a ghost through a straw, raspy, barely audible. Emma froze. Derek dropped his pen. I breathed again, shaky, giddy. "Say that again," Emma whispered. I did. "Cheap liar." Then silence. But this time it was the room holding its breath, not me. Detectives came the next morning. 2 men in plain clothes and wedding rings. They sat down across from Ryan in a side conference room, tape recorder clicking on. "Mr. Hayes, can you walk us through the authorization process for your mother's DNR and estate transfer?" Ryan leaned back, arms crossed. "Of course. She told me what she wanted. I didn't expect it to get so messy." One detective nodded. "So the documents were signed? When?" "Right before the stroke. She was clear-headed." "You witnessed the signature?" Ryan hesitated. "Lauren did, I think." "And the notary?" Ryan blinked. "I don't remember. It's been chaotic. We have handwriting analysis coming back soon." The other detective said casually, "You're sure that's her signature?" "I was grieving," Ryan snapped. "Confused. We all were." Outside, Lauren was already gone. Emma got the call from TSA. "She flagged for extra screening," the agent said. "One-way ticket to Belize. Business class. Phone was in her carry-on. By the time Lauren reached gate C12, 2 officers were waiting. Back in my room, the light had changed. Everything had. Emma brought in a laptop, loaded with Dragon voice dictation software. I leaned close to the microphone and whispered slowly. She stood at the foot of my bed. It took nearly 20 minutes to finish the paragraph, but the words on screen belonged to me. I kept going. She said she'd make it fast. Emma printed every page. That evening, I signed a full affidavit, 10 pages long, witnessed by Dr. Parker and notarized under hospital protocol. My name, my words, my story. By morning, it would be in the DA's hands. Emma stood at the window as twilight settled over the lot. Below, Ryan paced in front of his car, phone to his ear, shoulders hunched. Derek stepped into the room, holding a manila folder. "They're taking it to a grand jury," he said. I nodded. Then, without prompting, I whispered, "I'm ready." Outside, Ryan stopped pacing. His phone dropped to his side. 2 unmarked cars pulled into the circular drive. Inside, my voice cracked once more through the static of healing muscles. "Let them hear me." It began without warning, as most endings do. The local morning news cut in just after sunrise. I was propped up in bed, tea cooling on the tray beside me, while Emma tidied up the stack of mail accumulating near the window. Then came the broadcast. A live segment outside the Buncombe County Detention Center, the air slick with a steady North Carolina drizzle. The camera focused sharply on a man being escorted out of an unmarked sedan. There he was, Ryan. His hands were cuffed in front, his collar wet and sagging, his expression unreadable except for the faint twitch of his jaw. One of the detectives kept a hand on his elbow, guiding him forward as reporters shouted questions that blurred into one another. "What do you have to say about the allegations? Did you forge the DNR? Is your mother still alive?" Emma reached for the remote, unsure whether to mute it or let it play. I stopped her with a faint shake of my head. I needed to hear it. All of it. The anchor's voice carried through the room, cool and steady. Ryan Hayes, 42, of Asheville, North Carolina, has been formally charged with 3 felony counts, including financial exploitation of an elder, attempted estate fraud, and obstruction of medical guardianship. Hayes is being held without bail pending grand jury review. It was a moment I had imagined countless times since the stroke, fantasized even, but the reality was quieter than I expected. No thrill, no outburst of triumph, just a long, low exhale I didn't know I'd been holding. I wasn't elated. I was anchored. "He thought he'd win," I said softly, the gravel in my voice still sharp at the edges. "He really thought he could talk his way out of it." Emma turned toward me, her face calm but resolute. "Not anymore." Later that afternoon, Lauren's name appeared on the local court docket under preliminary investigation. The charges hadn't been formally filed yet, but her involvement had unraveled fast. Her phone, seized at the airport, revealed far more than they needed. Draft emails to offshore contacts, voice memos rehearsing testimony, and one particularly damning video taken in my living room with her saying, "Once it's signed, he can just pull the plug and we're clear." I felt no sympathy, only confirmation. By 3 o'clock, a junior assistant district attorney arrived at the hospital to present me with an offer. She was young, early 30s, nervous in that way professionals get when they know they're standing in front of a story that might make them or break them. "We're offering a plea deal," she explained. "If you agree, Mr. Hayes will serve a reduced sentence of 2.5 years with parole eligibility. No trial, no press, no cross-examination." Emma watched my face carefully. Derek stood at the window, silent. I let the words settle, heavy as they were. Then I spoke slowly, every syllable deliberate and clear. "No." The ADA blinked. Mrs. Hayes, if you don't wish to testify, we can find another—" "I'm testifying," I interrupted, my voice stronger now. "There will be a trial. He will hear me, and the public will hear the truth." She nodded once, tucked the offer back into her folder, and left the room without another word. That evening, as the golden hour light streamed through the blinds and cast long shadows across the tiled floor, Emma returned from a short walk with 2 paper cups and a quiet smile. They filed the full charges, she said, handing me the printout. Wire fraud, elder abuse, forgery, it's all there. I read every word. I didn't skim. When I was done, I folded the page neatly and placed it on the bedside table. Emma sat beside me, waiting. Then she asked, "Do you feel like it's over?" I turned to her slowly, let the silence settle before I spoke. "It's not over," I said. "Not even close." The sun was already rising when the transport van pulled into my driveway. It was strange how quiet it felt, coming home. Not the silence of hospitals, the kind you learn to tune out, filled with IV beeps and footsteps, but real silence. Grass soft beneath wheels, wind-rustling trees along the back ridge. My house looked smaller than I remembered, somehow more fragile now, as though it had been holding its breath, waiting for me to return. Emma helped me from the van with the same ease she'd used to steady my voice and my hands. She didn't treat me like glass. She never had. Dr. Parker had completed the discharge paperwork at 6 a.m. sharp, placing my care officially under private supervision. When they asked who I was choosing as medical proxy, I didn't hesitate. I gave them Emma's name. Now, she walked beside me as we crossed the threshold, the wheels of my lightweight chair bumping gently over the threshold. The air inside smelled faintly of lavender cleaner and dust. Someone, probably Emma, had already aired the place out. There were fresh sheets on the bed in the sunroom, a recliner near the window, and an adjustable table where my notebooks were stacked neatly beside a new laptop. Derek arrived later that morning, his briefcase worn but organized, a navy file folder tucked under one arm. He set it on the table with a certain weight. "Everything's in motion," he said. "The civil suit is filed. Restitution, punitive damages, the trust fund recovery. It's all being submitted as a package. And given what the grand jury handed down, I expect the civil judge to move quickly." I nodded. I didn't need to speak. Derek could read the resolve in my eyes. After lunch, Emma helped me into the study for the first time since I'd been hospitalized. I hadn't been in that room since the morning of the stroke. The bookshelves were untouched, dust motes dancing in shafts of light across framed diplomas and old family photos. It looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. While she sorted through some papers, I opened the bottom drawer of my writing desk. A faint creak, then the soft thud of a folder falling forward. I reached in and pulled out a stack of loose pages. I knew what they were before I unfolded the first one. Typed, formatted, labeled Eulogy Draft, and signed clumsily with Ryan's initials. It was surreal, reading your own funeral speech, especially one written by your son, filled with lies about peaceful passing, a legacy of quiet strength, and a final note thanking himself for honoring her wishes. I stared at it for a long moment before setting it aside. That evening, I recorded a video. Emma helped mount the camera, center the lighting, and steady the script I'd typed, with trembling fingers over the course of the last 2 days. It wasn't long, under 5 minutes, but I made every second count. I spoke plainly, clearly. My voice still bore the scars of stroke, but it carried weight. "In case this plays after my death," I began, "I want you to know exactly what happened. I want you to know that silence does not equal consent, and being alive isn't the same as being heard." I named names. I told the truth. And when I finished, I pressed stop. The next morning, Emma moved into the guest suite. She said it was temporary, just while she prepared for bar exams and balanced caregiving, but I suspected she needed a safe place as much as I did. We made tea each afternoon. She read case law aloud while I folded laundry and jotted marginal notes in her books. By Friday, the scholarship fund was finalized, the Emma Cross Legal Equity Award, for first-generation law students pursuing elder justice advocacy. Derek oversaw the disbursement. I signed the trust papers in my backyard beneath the magnolia tree, the same place where Ryan once played with toy soldiers when he was 5. As I sat in the late autumn breeze, watching Emma laugh at something in her law notes, I felt a flicker of peace. But peace wasn't the end. It was just the edge of something new. I had one more story to tell, and it wasn't over yet. It started with a shadow, not in the room, but on paper. Derek sat at the kitchen table that morning, reviewing scanned documents from the county clerk's office while Emma prepped coffee. The early light caught the edge of the envelope he was holding, a copy of the updated will Ryan had attempted to register 3 days after my stroke. Derek had requested it quietly, expecting nothing more than formality. But when he held it beside the scanned image of the will I'd signed the previous summer, the real one, his brow tightened, then furrowed, and stayed that way. "It's close," he murmured, eyes tracking every loop and tail of my signature. "Very close." Emma leaned over his shoulder. "What is it?" "The way she signs her G in Hayes," he said. "Yours curves inward, always. This one slants down, hard, like someone trying to mimic it from memory." He flipped to the last page, where the notary's name sat in printed block font. "Look at the paper," he added. "That isn't standard stationery. This is custom, slight ivory tint, gold filigree at the margin." Emma's eyes narrowed. "I've seen that before." She walked into the study, opened the bottom drawer of my writing desk, the same drawer where we'd found the funeral speech, and pulled out a near-empty box of monogrammed stationery I hadn't touched in over a year. "Wasn't this drawer locked?" she asked. I nodded. She held the forged will beside one of my own letters. The paper matched exactly. Same weight, same texture. Derek didn't speak right away. He was already dialing. By late afternoon, the handwriting expert had arrived, an older man in a brown blazer, soft-spoken but clinical. He sat with a magnifier comparing curves, pressure points, and stroke lengths, while the rest of us watched from the doorway like silent jurors. "The forger practiced," he said after an hour, "more than once. But this signature lacks the muscle memory. The M is too deliberate. The pen hesitates where it should flow." He looked up. "It's a fake." I knew that, of course, but hearing it confirmed officially made something knot and uncoil in my chest at the same time. That evening, Emma helped me record another video. This time, it wasn't for the public or even for my future heirs. This one was for the court. I sat upright at the dining table, the same place I'd hosted book club and birthday dinners, and spoke into the lens with my full, hard-earned voice. "My name is Margaret Louise Hayes. The last legally binding version of my will is dated July 14th, 2021. I wrote it with clear intent, and I revoked all prior versions due to a breach of trust involving my son, Ryan Hayes." I paused, swallowing. "The version dated August 9th, 2023 is a forgery. I never signed it, I never saw it, I never approved it. Anyone who says otherwise is lying, to you, to themselves, and to this court." The next day, the sheriff's department opened a supplemental fraud case. The forged will, the trust account, the transaction logs, they were all part of a broader scheme now. Not just elder abuse, organized financial manipulation. Then came the subpoena. Lauren's sister, Beth, a part-time notary and full-time Pilates instructor from Greensboro, was pulled in after one of Lauren's voice memos mentioned her name. She folded within 20 minutes. "She told me it was just a backup copy," Beth said. "She said Maggie was too weak to come in and just needed it re-signed. I didn't know." But she had. And now she was cooperating. As Derek and Emma reviewed Beth's deposition in the sunroom, I sat with the real will in my lap, my fingers running across the embossed seal. Outside, the wind shook the last golden leaves from the magnolia tree. This wasn't just about theft anymore. It was identity. It was legacy. And I wasn't finished protecting either. I'd imagined sitting in that courtroom many times, dressed in something dark but dignified, my hands steady, my voice unwavering. But the truth was simpler and harder. I testified from my sunroom. The court allowed a remote appearance, citing health accommodations. Derek had arranged the setup. A clear webcam, wired mic, and a legal liaison seated nearby to confirm authenticity. Emma set the scene. Soft lighting, neutral background, no interruptions. It wasn't grand, but it was mine, and it was enough. I could see the courtroom but not feel it. Just frames, split screens of faces, the judge, the jury, the attorneys, and Ryan, flanked by his lawyer, his tie too loose, his jaw tight. The judge addressed me first, verifying name and competency. I answered each question clearly, deliberately. My voice held steady. No quiver, no apology. Then came the testimony. I began with the hospital room, waking up alone and locked inside myself. The four, the white light, the helplessness. I recounted Ryan's whisper, words no mother should hear. She'll be dead before morning. The way his voice twisted into hope at the sound of my decline. I told them about Lauren's complicity, her cold comfort, and their push for early hospice. I described the DNR that I never saw, never signed, and the ambulance crew that nearly took me away to die under their roof. I watched the jurors closely, even through the screen. Some leaned in. One older woman covered her mouth. No one looked at Ryan. The prosecutor took over, stepping carefully through evidence. The courtroom lights dimmed as they played the hospital hallway audio, Emma's voice calling to Parker, Ryan's quiet panic outside my room. Then came the voicemail, piped through crisp speakers. Ryan's voice celebrating my supposed death, Lauren's glee about the Tesla, the timing, the tone, undeniable. Then the footage, grainy security clips of Emma intercepting the ambulance, of Ryan shouting at staff in the lobby, of Derek arriving under the guise of an old friend, and finally a clip of me, months later, holding a pen, scrawling 2 words onto a notepad with every ounce of will I had left. Stop him. I heard someone in the courtroom gasp, maybe even Ryan. The prosecutor returned to the screen. Mrs. Hayes, what did you believe your son intended to do? I looked directly into the camera. He wanted me gone, not just dead, gone, forgotten, silenced, deleted. Did you ever feel he loved you? For a moment, I didn't answer. Then, quietly, I said, I believe he once did. But the man I raised and the man in that courtroom are not the same. There was a pause. The judge looked to the defense table. Ryan's attorney stood, adjusted his tie, and asked for a recess. No cross-examination. No questions. Ryan said nothing, not a word. As the video feed ended and the screen went black, I sat back in my chair, exhausted but clean inside, like I'd emptied a cellar that had been locked for years. Emma appeared beside me with a blanket and a thermos of tea. You did it, she whispered. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I looked out the window where winter light slid across the yard. I meant every word, I said finally, but I'm not sure he even heard me. Emma placed her hand over mine. Oh, he heard you, she said. He just didn't know what to do with the truth. Inside that courtroom, I knew what came next. Rebuttals, final statements, jury deliberations. But out here, in my home, I felt the weight shift, not away from me, but to me. And it was finally mine to carry. The courthouse steps glistened with frost, the morning sun just beginning to melt the sheen of cold clinging to its stone face. We arrived early, not because we had to, but because none of us could sleep. Emma parked the car in the lot near the federal annex, then walked slowly around to open my door. Derek followed, his navy coat buttoned tight against the wind, a thin folder tucked under his arm. He didn't need it anymore. The work was done. What was left now was ritual, ceremony, closure. Inside, the courtroom was quiet, the buzz of pretrial chatter muted by the gravity of what today meant. A few reporters were already in the back row, notebooks in hand, lenses trained on the empty defense table. Lauren was not there. Her attorney had submitted a statement. Client is unable to attend due to medical leave, stress-related complications, and a pending mental health evaluation. It sounded rehearsed, polished, hollow, like everything else she'd touched. Ryan arrived moments before the session began, wearing the same ill-fitting suit he'd worn on day 1 of the trial. No tie, no wedding ring. He looked older now, thinner, grayer, as if the months had hollowed him from the inside out. He did not look at me. He never did. The judge entered promptly at 9 a.m., his gavel a single sharp echo that silenced even the court stenographer's keys. The air held, suspended. This court, the judge began, has reviewed all arguments, evidence, testimony, and submissions relating to the estate of Margaret Hayes and the criminal charges brought against Ryan Hayes. A pause. Papers shuffled. The bailiff stepped forward, handing the judge a sealed envelope. First, the judge said, voice calm but weighted, The court finds that the revised will dated August 9, 2023, is a forgery. It is therefore nullified, and all estate matters shall revert to the last valid document dated July 14, 2021. No one in our row moved. Emma's hand gripped mine under the table. The court further affirms for the record the mental competence of Margaret Hayes, both at the time of the original will's execution and throughout these proceedings. There it was. Not just legal acknowledgement, public vindication. I blinked slowly, grounding myself in the moment. As for the matter of criminal charges, the judge continued, Ryan Hayes is hereby sentenced to 5 years in state custody for financial fraud, elder abuse, and attempted estate theft. He will be eligible for parole after serving 30 months. I saw Ryan flinch, just once, when the word abuse echoed across the room. But he made no plea, no protest. Just sat there, jaw locked as the reality landed like a cold coin dropped into a dry well. And finally, the judge added, this court acknowledges the actions of Emma Cross, whose documentation and advocacy were instrumental in preserving the life, dignity, and agency of Ms. Hayes. Her work reflects the highest ideals of legal service and elder protection. Emma stiffened beside me, startled. Afterward, in the hallway, a woman in a crisp suit from the North Carolina legal clinics approached her. We've followed the trial closely, she said, handing over a card. We'd like to offer you a position, field advocacy and intake coordination for elder justice claims, part-time while you study, full-time after bar admission. Emma stared at the card, stunned. Then she looked at me. I smiled. You've earned it, I whispered. Outside, the sunlight had warmed the stairs. Derek stood at the bottom, waiting, holding open the heavy brass door. We stepped into the light together, me, Emma, and the knowledge that the future no longer belonged to silence. We passed a reporter on the sidewalk who barely glanced our way. The headline had already been written, the narrative archived, but it didn't matter. The real story hadn't been for them. As I reached the edge of the curb, I paused, tilted my face to the sun, and inhaled deeply. The air tasted like winter giving way to something gentler. Emma looked over, eyes bright. So, she said, what now? I looked ahead, down the steps, toward the street that led home. Now, I said. We live. It was late afternoon when the doorbell rang. I was in the sunroom, halfway through the crossword Derek had left on the breakfast tray, when Emma called from the front hallway. Her voice held something, curiosity maybe, or caution. There's someone here to see you, she said. She says her name is Natalie. The name meant nothing, but the look on Emma's face when she wheeled me into the foyer did. The girl standing there couldn't have been older than 20. Pale denim jacket, hair tied in a messy braid, thin canvas backpack slung over one shoulder. She clutched a manila envelope like it was a passport. Ms. Hayes, she said quietly, my name is Natalie Brennan. I think I'm Ryan's daughter. The world did not spin. It didn't lurch or crack. It simply paused. We moved into the kitchen, neutral ground. Emma made tea, and I gestured for Natalie to sit across from me. She did so carefully, folding her hands in her lap, posture rigid with something deeper than fear. It looked like grief, but older. I don't want anything, she said quickly, almost rehearsed. I know how it sounds, but I'm not here for, well, I'm not here for money. She slid the envelope across the table. Inside were photographs, one of her as a toddler in a swing, another in an 8th grade band uniform. Tucked behind them were copies of letters, dozens of them. They were in Ryan's handwriting, that much I could see immediately. One began, Natalie, don't think I forgot about you, I just don't know how to be what you need. Another, if you're reading this, it means I finally had the courage to mail it. None had been postmarked. I stared at them for a long time, then looked at her. She had Ryan's eyes, bluer than mine, tired in a way they shouldn't have been, but she didn't look like a manipulator. She looked like a kid who'd been told half a story her whole life and had come looking for the rest. I didn't know, I said, voice soft. She nodded. My mom never pushed him. She figured if he wanted to be a father, he would. He sent some checks for a while. Then they stopped. We didn't hear from him again. Emma sat quietly to the side, not interrupting. I felt her, watching me, letting me feel whatever I needed to feel. What I felt was confusion, sadness, anger at Ryan, fresh again, but beneath that, something unexpected, recognition. I remembered the boy who used to sneak extra blankets out of the closet to build forts in the living room, who cried when the neighbor's cat got hit by a car, who once brought home a bird with a broken wing and spent a week trying to feed it dry cereal and hope. He had not been born a villain. He'd grown into one. Natalie reached into her bag, pulling out a sandwich wrapped in wax paper. I didn't know if you'd want to talk, she said, eyes lowered. So I brought lunch. It's peanut butter and jelly. I make a really good one. I blinked once, then again, and laughed. A soft, scratchy sound that still surprised me when it came. Well, I said, gesturing toward the table, you'll have to prove it. We ate at the kitchen island, the late sunlight cutting through the trees in gold ribbons. Natalie talked about school, community college, intro to sociology, a work-study job at the library. She said she liked rules. They helped me feel real. When we finished, she stood awkwardly. I should probably go. Emma looked at me. I looked at Natalie. Stay a few days, I said, just until you feel like you've had the conversation you came for. Natalie's shoulders dropped, just slightly. Okay. That evening, while Emma read in the den and Natalie helped fold laundry on the back porch, I sat at my writing desk and opened the latest draft of my will. Then, without hesitation, I added a name, not because she was blood, because she was brave, and because no one should have to prove they belong. Not twice. I never thought I'd be building something new at 77, but there I was, signing the formation documents for the Hayes Voice Initiative, a modest but fierce trust focused on elder advocacy and rights education. We launched it quietly from my dining room table, with the first grant going toward outreach clinics for low-income seniors navigating guardianship. Emma stood beside me as we submitted the nonprofit paperwork, a legal pad under one arm, her hair swept into a no-nonsense bun. She looked exactly like the kind of woman I used to pray my son would fall in love with, sharp, steady, principled. Now she was family in all the ways that counted. She agreed to take on the director role part-time while finishing law school. Natalie, who had opted to stay through the end of the semester, handled the online systems, building a clean, intuitive website from scratch. Outreach is code for "make it less boring," she told us, grinning as she embedded videos and created an anonymous intake form. It was strange, watching my house fill with the quiet rhythms of purpose again. Coffee mugs left beside laptops, sticky notes blooming along cabinet doors, laughter drifting from the guest room as Emma read case briefs aloud, and Natalie rewrote them into plain English. At night, I wrote, the memoir took shape slowly, first in bullet points, then scenes. I called it The Blink That Changed Everything, not because the stroke had taken my voice, but because it gave me something back, the clarity to stop protecting what no longer deserved shelter. Page by page, I unspooled the story, not just of Ryan's betrayal, but of my own quiet complicity, the ways I'd looked away, smoothed over, pretended. I had done many things as a mother, but silence would never be one of them again. In April, the hospital invited me to speak to a group of recovering stroke patients and their families. They set up a small auditorium with soft chairs and a standing mic I didn't need. I rolled to the front, notes in hand, and looked out at the faces waiting. I was awake, I told them. I heard everything, and I lived anyway. Some cried, some nodded. One woman in the back clutched her husband's hand so tightly I could see the whites of her knuckles. That night, Emma handed me a letter, an envelope with a prison stamp, and Ryan's unmistakable slant across the front. Inside, one line, "Do you ever miss me?" I sat with it for a long while. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I wrote back, "I miss the boy I thought you were. No return address. No need." Weeks later, I recorded one last video, this time not for a courtroom or a legacy, but for the woman I used to be, The one who thought dignity came from pleasing everyone, the one who whispered instead of speaking. I faced the camera straight on. "My name is Margaret Hayes," I began. "I am not fragile. I am not forgettable. I survived. I testified. I rebuilt." I paused. Let the silence stretch. "And if you're watching this because someone tried to erase you, fight, make noise, make memory, make hell," I smiled, just a little, "because you're not done yet either." Then I pressed stop.